Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guests today are Wade Mundy, representing the Democratic Party, and Bill Phillips, a Republican analyst. Gentlemen, we have two candidates that have the highest negative numbers in the polls we've ever seen for national candidates. Is this the fault of both parties? Somehow their nominating process, Wade, did not work out right? How did we wind up with these two folks on there that nobody particularly seems to like other than the people that are their zealots?
Yeah, the nominating process isn't necessarily opaque, but it is difficult to access for some people, or difficult to comprehend. So I think that this could be a moment like the last time around when the Republicans removed their superdelegates, where Democrats can take a look and alter the process.
Bill, what do you think? You had 17 Republicans running. It seemed like there was not a lack of choices.
Well, no, there was not a lack of choice, but I think both parties are guilty of not listening to their constituency instead of the elected officials. So you had the governors and you had the senators all running, and then you had this one guy who was loud and boisterous, and that caught the attention of the people who actually went and pushed a button or attended a caucus, and the establishment sat with their mouth open. And the same thing, you know, Hillary had a tough time with Bernie, because I think people are saying the structure is not working.
Well, some of that may be a process too with Clinton, because there was no way to do any winner-take-all primaries on the Democratic side. Everything had to be done proportional, and that by nature just elongates the process. There's also the problem in the Democratic Party, Wade, about these superdelegates. Are we going to see a change in the superdelegates going forward?
I don't think we're going to see a change in the process, because I don't think that the people who are complaining about them are necessarily going to stick around. I think there's got to be a louder voice of opposition against that.
Bill, we're starting to see some states that may be in play that we haven't heard about being in play, and they tend to be red states. There have been recent polls in Georgia, South Carolina, even now Missouri, where I'm not sure Hillary Clinton's contesting there, but she's very close. What does that say? Does that say there's a fundamental change that goes beyond this cycle, or is this strictly a mixture of how people are responding to these two particular candidates?
I think it's the rumbling just below the surface of it's going to be the candidate who is disliked the least, and that's what they're beginning to weigh them, and then, okay, which one am I going to like less or more than the other? So.
Okay, Wade, how come Tennessee's not on that list? We have voted for Clinton, voted for Bill Clinton twice for president, yet every poll that we see in Tennessee, we continue to be very red in this, maybe well into double digits for Donald Trump.
I think the divide among the two candidates really does come down not only to demographics, a lot of white working class men supporting Donald Trump, everyone else supporting Hillary Clinton, but I think it's a rural-urban divide as well. And that's a trend that we've seen in the Tennessee Democratic Party for the last decade or more. I think that we will see more gains as more of the urban populations grow. We've got 5 major cities that will continue to grow.
I would add that Bill Clinton was seen as from Arkansas, our neighbor. Hillary Clinton is seen as from New York or Chicago
or Washington.
And so there's a big difference for Tennessee.
Wade, the vice presidential candidate Tim Kaine was here this week for a fundraiser. Both parties come to Nashville and Tennessee quite a bit. We're a pretty good area to raise some large dollars in some cases. But if Tennessee does so well for Democrats in raising money, how come you can't win elections here?
Yeah, well, we're working on that. I think a long history of gerrymandering, as well as on our party side, there's some fault in not recruiting a lot of candidates in primary elections or in open seat elections. I think we have failed at that. I know 10 years ago, there were more primary contests on the Republican side from young people where they were building up their bench, but on the Democratic side we had an aging legislature that wasn't being contested.
Well, there are more voters on the Republican side. It's now 2-to-1 the way it used to be for Democrats. When you look at the Republican turnout in their primaries, they get a lot more voters in their primaries than the Democrats even think about having.
That's right.
Bill, there was a report in the Tennessean this week that none of the state's 7 Republican congressmen or our 2 senators have contributed any money to Donald Trump. Does that surprise you, particularly since Marsha Blackburn made a speech at the convention and Bob Corker seemed to be on the short list to be vice president, yet their support is only verbal, it appears?
I have to admit I was a little surprised that they hadn't at least done a token. Usually, if you're not too happy with the candidate, you do a minimum.
Now, Wade, on the Democratic side, Congressman Jim Cooper is supporting Hillary Clinton and has given her money, even though a few years ago they were not the best of friends when they were fighting about national health care. But I don't see Steve Cohen on there, our other Democratic congressman from Memphis. Why is that?
I'm not exactly sure why Congressman Cohen's not given yet. He generally has tough primary challenges from his seat, so he could be saving his money for that.
But the primary's already passed up there.
Yeah.
You would have thought he'd be able to do that. So because I don't think he had any major problems.
Right. No.
So Bill, there's other outreach that we've seen by Donald Trump in recent days is to try to get black vote for him. Some of the polls I see, he gets like 1% of the minority vote. Is this really an effort to get minorities to vote for him? What is the strategy behind it? Just narrow the margins or something?
In his mind, he probably thinks it's a real effort. But I think in your more traditional political outreach, you can look at the audience and tell that they're not hitting the mark.
But Wade, these speeches that he's making about this at his rallies, they're almost always in predominantly white cities with predominantly white audiences. Why is he not speaking to the black community?
Right. Well, I think that he knows where his base of support lies, and his support among African Americans is in some places, and I've talked about polling already, but some places it's at 0%. So he's not going to change a lot of minds. He's not really going to close the gap there. And so if he can make white voters feel as though he is making a good faith effort to reflect them, which is that they have African American friends and they reach out to African Americans, then they're more comfortable.
Wade Money from the Democratic Party is with us today, along with Bill Phillips from the Republican side. Back to continue our conversation about the presidential race after you watch these messages.